Oak 93.5, I'm nowcast meteorologist Christopher Cawley.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're now tuned into Chat City with P. Ross. Conversations and interviews are in the queue. Listen or join in. Here she is, P. Ross.
Greetings, 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 everyone. Thank you for tuning in again to Chat City with P. Ross. I am your host, P. Ross, and I am excited to have very special guests in the studio with me today. That would be author Reverend Angela Davis. Let's welcome her like we usually do with our house applause, and I don't have it working right now, so
thanks for having me.
All right, and also with me today is none other than Mr. Will Quick.
Afternoon.
All right, he's been here with us before, and I'm going to let you know that he is our returning guest, but he's also going to be our Chat City correspondent. Okay? All right. All right. So, yes, thank you for coming back in again today, Will.
Oh, the pleasure's mine.
All right. So this show is going to be an amazing show for so many reasons. We've got author Davis with us here today, author Reverend Angela Davis. And not only that, I have a special treat for our listeners today. First of all, let me see if my special treat is here. Mr. McCormick, are you on the air? Are you listening anywhere? No. Okay. All right. So anyway, we're still going to give you that special treat, but we're having a little technical difficulties too on this other side over here. All right. So, but anyway, I'm going to tell you what my special treat is going to be today. Our American Idol contestant, Elijah McCormick, who was here on the show with me some time ago, has released his new single. Yes. Let's give him an applause for that.
All right.
And he has given us permission to play that song today here at Oak 93.5 on Chat City. Let's give him another applause for that. Now, the surprise was that he was supposed to join us today by phone, and that has not happened yet. He has not called in. But we're not going to delay because we got so much to cover today. So what we're going to do is go ahead and introduce you to this song. Again, by his permission, Elijah McCormick. This song, the name of this song, the title of this song is called Soar. And I'm telling you, when I heard it for the very first time, it was like, wow, this is so him. It's a beautifully written song. And let me tell you, he delivers it so nicely. So in just a moment here, once we get everything up and going here, it's working. I believe I got the cue to go ahead and do this.
I didn't realize he was an American Idol participant.
Oh yeah. You got to go back and look at it on YouTube.
Awesome.
I mean, he did a phenomenal job, and he's from our area too, Will.
Definitely going to be looking that up.
Yeah, I know his people, and went to church with them and all that stuff. But yeah. So anyway, here we go. Soar by Elijah McCormick.
A quiet room, me, myself, and all my crazy thoughts. I had no one to listen, I had no one to call. Trying to be strong, trying to hold on, can't fight this feeling. What am I doing wrong? I'm ready to fly, ready to soar, ready to see what's behind the future's door. What's behind that door? I'm taking a chance, again and again, 'cause I want more. The fighter that's been inside of me all along is trying to come out and sing a different song. Face the challenges and everyone who did me wrong. The highs and lows, they're all a part of the plan. I'm going to the top and I will take my stand. Have some courage and I'll never look back again. I'm gonna face the world. It's my turn. I'm ready to fly. I'm ready to soar. I'm ready to see what's behind the future's door. I'm taking a chance again and again, 'cause I want more. I want more. I want more. I need more. I want more. I'm ready to fly. I'm ready to soar. I'm ready to see what's behind the future's door.
All right, Elijah McCormick.
Awesome.
That was a great song. I was on the phone with him, and we got our information crossed up. He wasn't able to call in, but he did give us permission to go ahead and play. We're going to schedule for him to come in on the show and do that again with us at another time.
Nice.
All
Nice.
right,
You
but
want to
hey.
do an impromptu American Idol judges session on that?
That was nice.
So, what do you say, people? 10?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
all
last
right.
time I heard something like that, and I won't call names, but what it puts me in the mind of is a very, very, very successful artist.
Call the
Soar.
name. Call the name.
John Legend.
Hey, we
Oh,
already,
yeah.
hey, we told him
Oh,
that
yeah.
when he was on the show.
I know sometimes they don't like being compared,
know.
so that's why I said, but that is a voice that sounds like it's destined for greatness.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Absolutely. Before we go any further, you know what? I am from Moore County. Our guest, Reverend Davis, is from Moore County as well. And we have a situation there we want to bring to the light here as much as we can. So I've decided, hey, this is my way of doing our part. We have a missing female that's been missing since July the 16th from our area. She was last seen in Charlotte. It's been on the news, and it's kind of it's a sad story, but we believe that she's going to be able to come home.
Yes.
As much as we get the word out, and as much as we can, who knows? You know, maybe somebody's seen something or heard something of her whereabouts. There is a person, I'm going to say, of question in this whole situation. There was a news conference that aired yesterday in the Charlotte area, and of course it's circulating around now. So let's tell you a little bit about this missing person. Her name is Allisha, Allisha Watts, 39-year-old black female. She is a business owner. Her business is stationed in Siler City, North Carolina. She's very community oriented. She's a part of several civic groups in the Moore County area. So, a very educated woman. I'm told she has 2 master's degrees, and she spends a lot of her life dedicating to helping others, people in the mental health arena. So, if you will, pray with us about getting Allisha Watts home.
Yes.
Her vehicle was spotted by police before she was announced that she was missing in Anson County, North Carolina. And it was spotted at a DMV office in the parking lot. There was a person found in the vehicle, which was her boyfriend. And he was first found unresponsive. No, let me get that right. When police were just casing the place, they found the vehicle there, saw the person inside the vehicle, and I think they awakened him or whatever and asked him who he was or that nature, things of that nature. And he said he was someone that just stopped by to rest or came off the highway to rest. And then from there, I think police circulated the area again, saw the vehicle still there 3 hours later, and this time they found him unresponsive. He was transported to a nearby hospital, and that's all you hear of this gentleman. Nothing more or anything else about him. The family and friends of Allisha Watts is very disappointed that the police is not giving them more information than what they have, far as this gentleman who was known as her boyfriend and who she was last seen with in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is very uncharacteristic to her, of her, to do anything like this. We don't want to call the other situation or bring much light to that other situation that happened prior to this, the other missing female who that turned out to be a hoax or whatever. We don't want to shed any more light on that. That's being taken care of. We want to focus on Allisha Watts right now. So if you have seen anything, if you know of anything, please contact the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department or the Anson County Police Department. And there is a tip line I will give to you in just a moment. But I wanted to focus a little bit on today, what do you do in the case of a missing person? Now, our co-host today, Will Quick, is a former law enforcement agent. So I was going to ask him to shed some light on what we need to do. But before we do that, hashtag find Allisha Watts. If you will, just stop what you're doing if you can at this moment or sometime throughout your day today. Please hashtag find Allisha Watts, ALLISHA Watts, WATTS. Look at all that information that comes with that hashtag. And there's a tip line, 1-800-694-1981. If you have any information. If you have friends or family in either of these areas, Charlotte, North Carolina, Southern Pines, North Carolina, Siler City, North Carolina, hey, share this information with your friends. Maybe they have heard or seen something that could be beneficial for this young lady. Will, help us out. What do we need to do in the case of a missing person?
Getting the word out right now from the standpoint of the family and the people that care and love about her, and those by extension, of course, is the most important thing. From a law enforcement perspective, I think that, and I can understand the family's frustration about not getting answers, but their number one thing is not so much knowing what happened to her, but bringing her home safely. Knowing what happened to her is secondary, just as long as she gets home safely.
Right.
Unfortunately, that process is not exclusively determined by the investigation, because we don't have any idea what the circumstances are, and because you can't rule out the possibility of an actual criminal investigation, then information is always going to be held closely, because her going missing, and prayerfully she'll return safely, but that doesn't mean that someone can't be held accountable if she's missing involuntarily. So holding that information close is critical to preserving the investigative integrity and having a successful prosecution, which is where the frustration comes in with the family, because there really isn't much to update the family other than to say they found her, and prayerfully they will find her alive and well. And then we can move forward beyond that with being able to interview her. I can tell you this, given the location where that vehicle was found, and the connection to the individual that was in the car, I can assure you that if he's been able to be interviewed, that they have made every effort to interview him. I can assure you that if there is any evidence leading to giving them clues about her whereabouts in the car, that's been gone over thoroughly. I can assure you that they have also canvassed the area for camera footage. I can assure you that they are also utilizing all subpoena and search warrant means, utilizing that to gain access to phones and social media accounts to see if there's any clue as to what her movements have been leading up to her going missing.
Yeah, I was looking at some other media coverage on this story before I got here today, and I was enlightened about some other things that were not said earlier, and excuse me, in some of the other segments that I saw, and her friends have really opened up. I've had the opportunity to meet this young lady once. And one thing I remember about her is her smile. I don't know a whole lot about her other than what I'm learning of her today. Right. And they said, you know, hey, she was just a caring, giving person, loved everybody, and was fun to be around. Wow. I'm hurting because my friends are hurting.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? The whole community is hurting. And they came together to do a candlelight vigil for her in Southern Pines, North Carolina. They also chartered a bus to go to Charlotte, North Carolina, and do a news conference about what is going on with her. And like I said, I saw some more coverage today where her friends kind of opened up and gave in detail a little bit more about her situation and the quote-unquote new boyfriend.
I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety among the family. It hasn't been that long ago. The situation, once again, with another young lady from the Charlotte area, once again, another business owner and very active in the community, the young lady that went on the trip out of the country.
Oh, yeah.
And the people that were around her are the ones that are being looked at, to some extent, responsible for her death. But from a standpoint, from last I've heard, it does not sound like there's a lot of information available to get closure from a criminal justice standpoint for the family. And that is very disheartening because I can't see it as anything other than a senseless death.
Yeah. All right. So what I want to say today, just a few more things because I don't want to stay too much on this situation other than, you know, hey, let's find Allisha, let's bring her home. And I just want to say that if you have, ladies and gentlemen, someone new that you're bringing into your life, do the friend check. What is the friend check?
Do something.
I mean, and I want to just house applause this young lady's friends here because they all saw signs from what I was listening to at the news coverage earlier today. They all saw signs to where they had red flags about her new friend. Okay. And like they said, you know, they brought it to her attention, but you know, love is blind sometimes, you know. So I want to say
the possibility of love.
You know, hey, do that friend check. You know,
I mean, now you can actually set your phone up so someone can actually track your phone. So let's say you're going out and you're kind of concerned, or you're traveling at night or whatever. Something happens, there's someone else that you trust that can track your phone, and then you know you automatically have a connect with law enforcement if they need to get involved.
Exactly.
That's good. Yeah, I just remember days back when I was in college. I mean, my first quote unquote boyfriend that I chose to go out with, I left a whole paragraph. You remember those things in college where you stick on the outside of your door and, you know, you leave notes or what? I left a whole paragraph, description of what it looked like, the car I'm going to be getting in. I did. And those friends were like, girl, we was concerned about you. You know, thank God I made it back safely. But yeah, do that friend check. Listen to your friends sometimes. No, they're not trying to get in your business. Just listen to what they say. Do you have to do what they ask you to do or tell you about how they feel about the new person in your life? No, but just use caution. And they do it with love.
Absolutely.
You know, and we all should just, in this day and age, know now.
Exactly.
And if you didn't know it today.
Yes.
Use caution whenever you go out. I don't care if you're going to the store or wherever. Leave a note or something about where you're going, time you left. You know, absolutely. If you aren't calling anybody and telling anybody. Reverend Davis, do you have any words on this before we
just praying for the
from
family? I can only imagine what they're feeling. And as the gentleman that's here with us is saying, just keep them in prayer. That's what we have to do. And what you said is so important, especially when you don't know the person and you're meeting them for the first time. Ask your friends, like you said, do you know anything about this person? Tell me a little bit about them. Don't just assume. because some people are going on date apps and they just believe what they see and what they hear, and the person is nothing like that. So we have to remind not only our females.
And I got to give you a hand clap on that. I need you to repeat that, Reverend Davis. Say that again.
About going on the date apps. Don't use those things. Be very careful with those things, because people are pretending to be somebody that they're not. And by the time you figure it out, sometimes it's too late. So again, be very careful about those types of things, because they're not. People put on fronts. They want you to think they're a certain type of person, and before you realize it, like I always say, the person could be crazy, whatever. They're not going to tell you on that date, I'm crazy. They're just going to make you think. And later on, you find out those things. So let's just keep this family in prayer, because we know God is able. We know God is able.
Dating apps. Now, I have used them, and I have heard successful stories from them. But you also got to be cautious with them. That's very cautious. And like you said, people are on. When I first learned that little thing, people, like you said, they're not anything. Some of them, a lot of them, majority of them are not who they say
they even
are.
have a show about that called Catfish. And it's usually more so about the aesthetics of it, not so much the substance. But
but you're right.
Yeah,
you're all right.
Yeah. So anyway, here are some tips that you can use if you feel that someone that you love or know is missing. First of all, determine if you believe that person is missing. Check their home and contact friends to see if they are truly missing. Then the next step you want to do is contact and report to the police. Contact the National Missing Unidentified Persons System and provide them with that missing person's information. Details as much as possible. Use social media. Get that information on social media and ask people to help you share it. Alert local media by sending photographs and videos of the missing person. TV, newspaper, radio, websites. And then here's an 800 number for missing people. 1-800-THE-LOST, THELOST. That's 1-800-THE-LOST.
An interesting point to make, and I think this is probably a fallacy that comes about from TV, where they say, well, a person had been missing for X number of hours. That is not a wholesale pause for why you list someone as missing, because if you can explain and articulate exactly why you feel like this person may be missing and endangered because of very unusual behaviors, unusual characteristics, you are close enough with them to know what their normal behaviors are, even if it's only been an hour or two. There is no, to the best of my knowledge, standing rule that they have to be missing for 24 or 48 hours. And with children, immediately. Exactly.
That's good to know. Hashtag find Allisha Watts. ALLISHAWATTS. Allisha, we are praying for you, dear.
Yes.
Okay. In the building with us today is Reverend Angela Davis. Again, we want to say welcome to the show.
Glad to be with you.
Reverend Davis is a native of Taylortown, North Carolina.
Yes.
Married.
Yes.
Well-rounded family woman.
Yes.
She comes from a good family. How do I know?
Say that.
A good Christian family.
Good family. I mean,
wow.
I'm gonna tell you, I believe I knew Reverend Davis's mom before I knew anyone else.
Yes.
And the way I know her mom is because I attended this little elementary school back in the 70s, and Mrs. Shirley Head.
That's right.
Was a teacher, educator at that school. And then later on, your brother Robert Hedden, Reverend Robert Hedden, was my classmate.
Wow.
But I remember your mom, first of all, as a teacher, and then I began to learn who her children were after that. Yeah. So again, Reverend Davis, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about being with you.
She is an author, and she's written 3 books that I know of. At least I was privileged to receive 3 of her autographed books today. Hadn't had a chance to really dive into them like I want to, but the titles are eye-catching and makes you want to peel it open and start reading automatically.
Thank you so much.
All right, so Reverend Davis, I'm going to have you to tell our audience a little bit more about yourself.
Well, as you said, I'm from Moore County. Proud of the city I come from, called T-Town. Grew up there. Everybody knew my mom. Yes, you're absolutely right. Everybody knew Miss Shirley. Graduated from Pinecrest High School. Went on to St. Augustine University. Got a degree, a BS degree in health and physical education. Left there, moved away, came back to Moore County. So I've been back here now over 30 plus years now, with the intention of only being here 3 years. So you can see, God had other plans. So, and then I pursued the writing.
So tell us, about your, let's go back into Reverend. I want to get into that and then start rolling it in with your book. So,
wow.
Reverend. How did we get to Reverend?
That's still a question. That's still a question.
Tell us about your encounter with, I'm going to say salvation, and I am a Christian.
Yes.
Salvation and then ministry.
Okay. The journey started, I have to say, with my mother keeping us in church. Spalding Chapel, AME Zion Church in Teletown is where we grew up. Never thought about the idea of ministry. Enjoyed missionary work, but never ministry. I could not imagine myself, because I can remember being in the church and seeing the pastors that would stand up. Well, for me, one of the questions was always, where were the women? That was always a question for me, because it was always men. And I would see the things that they would go through, and I would say to the Lord, please, whatever you do, don't ever call me to pastor or preach the word. Because
you've spoken into your life with that.
Oh, my God. You have to be careful, I'm telling you. So it started with that journey, and from there I started doing missionary work and things of that nature, but began to realize somewhere down the line that life was different. I was getting ready to take a turn for me in terms of ministry. I can remember when I came back home, I had a notebook with, which I didn't know what they were. And I have a friend, Apostle Andrew Weeks, and we were walking one morning. And I said, I want to show you this notebook. And I showed her. I said, well, what in the world are these things? She said, these are sermons. And I said, naturally, I asked her, so who's going to preach them? Who's going to preach? She said, you are. And I dismissed it. I went into Department of Social Services, worked there for a while. Then I was also involved with the school system. But the yearning, the teaching, the platform, where I believe God was calling me, took over. And so I ended up going back into the AME Zion denomination.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So are you a pastor?
I am.
Currently. Okay.
Full-time pastor.
Full-time pastor.
Yes.
All right. Did you, once you realized you had what they say, the calling, you have the call, okay. Did you decide, okay, I need to get some training, or I need to go to a seminary school? Or are you like a lot of folks that say, hey, I'm just going to listen to the voice of the Lord and follow his instructions?
Basically, a combination of I ran, number one. I did not want to adhere to, like I said, I did not want to go into the ministry. So I ran for a long time, and I used to do speaking engagements, and I didn't recognize it as preaching. It was just something that people say, you can preach, girl. And I was like, no, I ain't a preacher. And so, no, I did. And then gradually what I did, I went to my pastor, who has deceased now, Reverend V.D. Dowdy, part of Mount Olive Church, and began to tell him that I felt like I had a call on my life. I didn't know what to do with it. And so he began to nurture me. He started nurturing me, and he was an older gentleman. And from there, he just guided my steps and put me in the right place with the training that I needed. So I have gone through 6 years of what we call district studies when you first start out, and then I had to do conference studies. So I have a total of 6 years in training in the ministry.
Oh, wow. Okay, that sounds good. Now, let me ask you this, Reverend Davis, who was the first person you told? Was it your husband? Were you married at the time, or were you dating at the time? Or did you say, hey, who did you tell that I got the call and I'm going to go?
I would have to
the
say the first person I told, because keep in mind I was telling you about Apostle Andrew Weeks.
Right, okay.
So she would have been the first person, because I did not know what this book was. All I know is God told me to write things down, and I did. And that was she was the first person that I told. And then secondly, would have been my husband to say, I think God is moving me in this direction. But I said to him, but I'm praying hard that it's not going to be pastoring. Preaching and pastoring are two different things. People get that mixed up. I mean, preparing a sermon is not that hard. It's difficult. The preaching part is not that hard. Pastoring is like it's different. It's
relationships.
It's relationship. It's administrative work. You got to be on top of everything.
Yes. So let me ask you this: what was your husband's reaction when you told him?
But I have to honestly say, my husband has been very supportive of me. He never once said, we can't do this. I don't want you to. He never, ever interfered. He just said, well, if you feel strongly that that's what God's calling you to do, I'm going to support you. And I thank him for that, because some people don't have that support system, because you're traveling into the unknown. And your husband and your family have got to be willing to share you, because it's no longer just me. It's you become everybody. You become part of everybody's family. So he was very supportive and still is very supportive.
We're going to give a house applause to your very supportive husband, who is in the station with us today.
Yes.
Mr. Greg Davis. Yes. All right. So if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Chat City with P. Ross on Oak 93.5 FM WRLY, Raleigh, North Carolina. I have in the station with me today my very special guest, Reverend Angela Davis. And we have our co-host today, Mr. Will Quick. Mr. Will Quick.
Hello.
All right. Reverend Davis is also an author. She's written 3 books that I have here with me today. Sisters in the Pulpit. Let's start with that one.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure you have heard this, others have heard this, and I've questioned other female ministers about this. I have another co-host who is a female minister. Women in the pulpit. There is a scripture, I believe, 1 Timothy, that goes like this: let a woman learn in silence with all submission, and I do not permit a woman to teach or have authority over a man, but to be in silence. Reverend Davis.
Yes.
and let me say, look, I don't have a problem with women preachers.
That's good.
I do not. I do not.
Good.
Now, I'm one of these women, though, that I like male leadership, you know, and I've had women come at me over that, but that's just me. I don't have, women have been very instrumental throughout the Bible. I remember the first time I ever heard that a woman is not supposed to be a preacher was through a friend who heard it from her other friend, and it was an argument they got into about it. And I said, well, man, where I come from, women are preachers, okay? That's not a problem for us, And so then people would point out this scripture here. But Reverend Davis, answer this question.
Well, I'm going to say it to you. I said to you when I was growing up, I've always been one who would look at people. And growing up, I said to you, I watched and said, where are the women? Because the women in the church were allowed to stay on the floor. They were not allowed to go in the pulpit. They were good to be missionaries and things of that nature. I never have succumbed to that scripture because you have to remember what was going on when it was said. It's taken out of context completely. And what they were talking about was when the women would go to meetings, what they were saying to the women was, do not ask questions on the floor. That's what they were referring to. If you have a question for your husband or somebody, wait until you get home, but don't embarrass them on the floor. Now, you have a lot of women that will not support women preachers, which I don't understand, because I'm like you. I said to this now. Women, we can be anything else we want to be, but it's something about that pulpit. We can be doctors, lawyers, drive trucks. We can do all that. But when you talk about going in the pulpit, for some reason, some people have problems with it. I personally do not and will not succumb to a male needing me to stay in a certain place, because those things don't exist anymore. If you're being honest and you think about some of the churches, if it was not for the women, come on.
Repeat that, please.
If it was not for the women, thank you, I appreciate it. If it was not for the women who are coming forth to keep the church going, what would happen to the churches?
And you know what? My former male pastor, the late Theodore Spencer, mentioned that he would teach that in school, in Sunday school. So that's what he had support of women preachers.
We need. See, sometimes when I go to preach, I'm not concerned about the men. That's irrelevant to me, because as a woman, you are used to being criticized by a man if you're in a leadership role. Not all men, but some men. But for me, the problem has always been the women who will not support other women. I don't even apologize anymore. I used to feel like I had to give somebody an explanation, but I'm like, God knew that when he called me. It wasn't like he called me and said, oops, I forgot you were a woman. No, it don't operate like that. It doesn't operate that way. So Sisters in the Pulpit is about encouraging women who know God is calling you, but you are sitting back allowing other people to dictate the journey that he wants to put you on. And what men need to understand, the question I always ask them, what are you going to do when it comes in your house and he comes after your daughter?
Uh-oh.
What you going to do?
What you going to do?
What you going to do? You going to say to her, you can't? But Daddy, you've told me I can do everything else, but this thing I can't touch. It ain't on me, it's on y'all.
I've always told folks, if the Lord said that to you, then it ain't nothing else for me to say.
That's right. That's right.
If you're telling me that this is what the Lord has given to you, that this is what you believe he said to you, it doesn't matter. It's done.
It's done. It's already done. But so many women, if you read in the book, I talk about how women don't step up to the plate. And I tell my sisters, stop praying, asking God to open doors for you. And then when he open the door, you won't step through the door.
Oh, okay now.
You know what I'm saying? What? I mean, if I were God, I'd be like, girl, don't call me no more. You know, I've given you this door to walk through, but you want to call everybody and get everybody's approval. You don't need anybody to validate you. That's what he's talking about. If you know for a fact within yourself that God has validated you, what do I need to call you for? I'm making you bigger than God.
Oh, all right now.
Exactly.
Hey, on this cover, you've chosen several women.
Yes.
And it's a really nice cover here.
Thank you. Thank
Sisters
you.
in the Pulpit, don't stop believing in yourself. Jeremiah 1 and 5.
Yes.
A couple of the faces I recognize besides yours. The lady that's standing to your left.
It's probably Reverend Tracy Miller. She's a colleague of mine.
Okay.
Then you're going to see Apostle Andrew Weeks. You see Reverend Cynthia Ransom. You also see Reverend Gloria Downs.
Gloria Downs.
She's from Moore County. She worked in the school system there. And then you should see Reverend Vivian Williams, who is from Anson County area.
Okay. All right. Apostle Andrea Weeks. New last name now. Parker.
Yes.
Apostle Parker. Yes. Shout out to Apostle Parker.
Yes.
She is the first person you chose to show your memoirs to or your writings to. That's who you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, and you got her on the cover with you. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
because she was the one, I went to a Bible study with her, and I hadn't mentioned to anybody that I thought I could write. I had only mentioned to my daughter. I said to my daughter one day, I was standing at the sink, and I said, I think I can write. And she said, Mama, you probably can. I said, where did that come from? And I went to church that night, and in the midst of the Bible study, Apostle Andrea Weeks turned around and looked at me, and she said, Reverend Davis, the Lord told me to tell you, go ahead and write that book. My mouth was wide open.
But you see what you did there?
What?
He had already spoken to
Yes.
you. It wasn't that she came to you cold. He had already spoken to you at the kitchen.
Yes.
And with your daughter right there.
My daughter
and
right
all
there
she
with
did
me.
was confirmation with someone
That's
that he's
it.
already using.
That's it. That's it. And so whenever she told me that, I just, when God gives you something to do, sometimes you'll act on it right away. And then sometimes you'll put it down because you think you can't do it. I went through all of that because I didn't know anybody who had written a book. And so when I reached out, people will say, oh, I help you. I
was going to ask you, so what was, as a first-time author or beginning author, what measures did you use to start your first book?
Listening to the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
I let him lead me the whole way because I asked God, I said, why won't you put somebody in my pathway to help me? He said, because I want it to be just about me. Nobody else can get the credit. Nobody will ever be because nobody helped me. It was a matter of him. This is what he told me. He said, keep all of your sermons. Your sermons are the chapters to your book.
Okay.
So I started keeping all of my sermons. And when God said, it's time, that first book, not that one you have now, but the first book I wrote was back in 2015.
Oh, okay.
Overlooked by man, but chosen by God.
All right. Yeah, that's another one I have in my hands. Walk in your purpose despite the odds. Tell us the inspiration behind your second book. Oh,
Because
no, this was your first book.
That's my first book.
Okay.
Came out in 2015.
Okay. All right.
Because too often we are overlooked. Men and women are overlooked by other people. We wait for other people to validate us and tell us what we can do when God has already poured in us everything we need to do whatever he called us to do. And so for me, it was a matter of recognizing, why am I waiting for somebody else to tell me what I know God has already told me to do?
Yeah, right.
So God gave me the title, Overlooked by Man, which we all have experienced that, but chosen by God. In other words, I've chosen you. I have equipped you. I have empowered you. I have given you everything you need. All I need you to do is step up to the plate. That's
Now,
all.
once you got all your notes together and you decided, okay, I'm ready to publish the book, what was the next step? I mean, how did you find?
Well, first, what I did,
a company to do
I did a draft of the chapters, okay, and I gave it to a friend, and I said, if you were reading this is a chapter to my book. I gave it a title, put it in order. So I gave it to like 4 or 5 different people because I wanted to see what people were looking for. And so I got everything back, and pretty much everybody was consistent with these are the chapters that need to go first. So I did the editing first, and then I started looking for someone that could help me publish my book because I self-published all of my books.
Okay.
And
All
so
right.
the Lord dropped in my spirit Damon Clark.
Oh,
And you know
okay.
Damon.
I do, yes.
And I had not connected with Damon before, and I kept saying, I don't know anybody. The Lord said, yes, you do, Damon. Get in contact with Damon. So the rest is history. I got in contact with Damon, got my manuscript together, gave it to Damon, and he ran with it and put it all together.
All right, we're going to give a hand clap to Mr. Damon Clark. Okay, then you moved on to your next book. But before we talk about your next book, you're listening to Chat City with P. Ross on Oak 93.5 FM WRLY Raleigh. We have with us Reverend Angela Davis. She is the author of several books here, and we are talking about them today. All right, quitting is not an option. You must finish what you started. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
That sounds like a go-getter, motivator
Yes,
kind of book right
yes.
there. Talk
Because
about this one.
As I said, being a pastor, you have moments where you feel like throwing in the towel. And you can have that in any job, any profession. You can get burned out in any profession. It just so happened I happen to be a pastor. And one day I was sitting and I was saying to the Lord, you know, I really enjoy this, but the people are so challenging. Because as I was listening to that young man's song about Soar, that's really what pastors are supposed to try to do to their congregation, is to pour into them the ability to know that you can soar, that you don't have to stay in the place that you find yourself. And as I was doing that, I was becoming kind of burned out myself. And I just said to the Lord, I said, I think, now listen to me having this conversation with God, I think I'm going to do something different. and that's where that came from. He said, quitting is not an option. You got to finish what you started. In other words, you can't quit until I called you out of the ministry.
All right.
And that's how that all came about. Quitting is not an option. You must finish what you started. It's easy to start something, but the question we all have to ask ourselves, did I finish? Did I finish what I started? Or did I stop in the middle of it? And what challenges did I face to allow me to throw in the towel?
Wow.
Because there are challenges.
If you have any questions for Reverend Davis today, feel free to call us right now at 919-899-9305. Again, if you have any questions for us today, Reverend Davis, 919-899-9305. Now is your time to call. All right, Reverend Davis, as we asked you earlier, are you a pastor? And you said, yes, you're a full-time pastor. And you said with that comes a few challenges. All right,
yeah.
so tell us about those challenges.
Okay. The challenges is you have to be able to relate to all types of people. Number one, people can be challenging, but you have to see them and meet them where they are. You can't expect everybody to be on the same level in the church because they're not. You have people who are unchurched, and they're learning for the first time what it means to be a part of a congregation. You have administrative responsibilities because when something goes wrong in the church, you have to be the one to fix it. Not fix it yourself, but find people that can take care of it. So you got the administrative part of it. You have the financial part of it, which you got to make sure that the monies are balanced right and they're used in the proper way that they're supposed to be used. So those are just a few of the challenges. Then you have the responsibility of you pretty much on call 24 hours a day. You're on call, you know, whether you want to be or not. When you go home at the end of the day, I had somebody laugh and I said, when I was working in the school system, I got off work at 3 o'clock. I was through. I knew it was it for the day. But when you, as a pastor, you're on call 24 hours because you never know when you're going to get a member to call you and say, can you come to the hospital? It could be 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
You never know when you're going to have someone that just reach out to you, because sometimes I have people who I don't know, but my members have given them my name to call me, and I pray with them and I minister to them. So it's those types of challenges. But I have to tell you, being honest, as I think back over my life, I'm in my right space. And I know that without a shadow. I know I'm in the right place doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Because as a little girl, I used to play school all the time. I was a teacher. And so pastoring and preaching to me is just another platform. It's a platform that God gives you.
All right. And what did you do in the school system?
I was a teacher assistant for a number of years. And then what was so funny was I got out of the school system, and then when I moved back home, because I had been gone for over 20-some years, I decided to go back into the school system and become a teacher assistant. But it conflicted with what God was calling me to do. So he made it plain to me that that's not what I called you to do. I called you to be available to my people full time. So I had to back away.
What should the core values of a church be?
Open. One thing, accept people for who they are. Not judgmental, because too often churches judge other people, but you forget you were one of them.
All right now.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
You came out of the world. Do not judge people. When you pray, and I believe in this strongly, when you pray and ask God to send people in your church, they're not going to look like you. They're not going to smell like you. They're not going to dress you like you. So if you're going to say that you're going to have an open arm, you got to sincerely be that way. I want people to come into my church and know they are welcome. And when they leave out, I want them to say, I can't wait to get back. So the core value, are you welcoming? Do you make people feel like they are accepted, or are you constantly judging them without even opening your mouth? Because you can judge with your eyes.
Right.
Just, you look at them too long, or you ignore them.
There's a meme out on social media. I don't know if any of you two seen it. It's like two church ladies. They got the church lady hat, and they're looking at each other, or they're looking away, like maybe at a door or something. You don't really see what they're looking at. And it looked like they could be leaning over, whispering, getting ready to say something to each other. And in the meme, they're asking you, what do you think these two ladies are saying? And it's like they're giving somebody the evil eye.
Yeah.
And I've seen several responses to that, like, oh, look at her with that short skirt on.
Yeah, but you know
little
what?
stuff like that. So
The thing that we all have to remember, we wore the short skirts. We wore the tops out. We did all of that. So sometimes I think people just forget where they came from because everybody's got a story.
That's right.
Everybody's got a story.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you delineate the difference between judging the heart, which only God can do, versus by his scripture judging behavior?
I put it this way. I go by the scripture.
Correct.
And God said he will judge the behavior.
Okay.
Not the person.
Okay.
Because he loves the person.
Correct. That's the hard part.
It is the behavior.
Correct.
That goes against his will for your life.
Correct.
So what I do if I meet someone who maybe the behavior doesn't line up with where they're trying to get, my job is to love on them.
But do you find that a lot of them associate the fact that you are calling them on the behavior inconsistent with the scripture, and then they receive that as you are judging them?
Well, I haven't had that experience per se, because if I'm going to have a conversation with a person, I'm not going to do it in a public setting.
Right.
I'm gonna sit with them. First of all, ask them, where are you trying to get in your walk with Christ? What is it? I try to get them to tell me, what are the things you think, not me, what are the things you think that you're doing that's not pleasing in God's eyesight?
Right.
So then it takes me out of the equation, because then you have then pointed out your own flaws. I have not pointed them out to you.
You're getting them involved in their own solution so they will buy into it.
And it lines up. I
like that. All right. Reverend Davis, how do you go about preparing your sermons?
Quiet time. I love to walk. I love to walk. So I'm up every morning about 6:30. I meet my daughter about 7:15. We walk every day. And in my quiet time with her, sometimes she says something and I just leave. I was like, okay. I take it and I go back, and when I get in the car, I have a little notepad that I keep with me, and I write things down. And I write them down, and then when I get by myself, I look at them over again. I said, Lord, what are you trying to tell me in that? Because sometimes it's just a word. It's just a word. It may just be a word he gives me. And then I do my own research to say, what does that word actually mean? And then I have to connect scripture to that word. How does the Bible speak on that? And how can I make it relevant? I never want to preach over somebody's head. I got to make it current. I got to make it something my young people understand. Because if I come in there with thee, thou, though, I've lost them.
Yes.
So that's how I prepare. Get by myself. And then as God begins to drop something in my spirit, I write it down, and then I work on it throughout the week.
All right. As an author, are you affiliated with any book clubs?
No, I need to be.
Okay.
No, if you have any suggestions, please let me know.
Okay.
But no, I haven't yet connected with any book clubs. I have connected with one of the bookstores that I'm trying to get my book in, because right now I sell my books myself directly. Myself.
Okay. All right. Out of all of the books you've written, which is your most favorite?
Probably because of where I am in my journey, Sisters in the Pulpit.
Sisters in the Pulpit.
Because there are women, young women, sitting in churches every Sunday or sitting out who want to be used by God. And they're afraid to step out on faith. So I figure if I could be an example of someone who, I've never followed the norms. I've never been one to follow crowds. I've always just kind of been my own person. To be able to say to them, because when I see women, they see me first, they see my short haircut, and they question it. I'm like, don't go there. This is just it's just a hairstyle. Hair doesn't make the person. So Sisters in the Pulpit would probably be my favorite one, because I want to be a light. I want to be a light to guide other women to find their place. If it's not in the pulpit, it may be in the corporate room. It may be at the boardroom, at the table. My whole idea is trying to get them to walk in their leadership roles.
We have a caller on the line. Caller, state your name, your first name, and where you're calling from. Okay, I believe they hung up. Caller, call back. You have a few minutes. Okay. All right. Reverend Davis.
Yes.
Who's your favorite author, and what's your favorite book?
Oh, boy. I love T.D. Jakes books. I read a lot of his books. I love Joyce Meyer's books. I'm reading one by T.D. Jakes, or listening to one called Disruptive Behavior, which fascinates me because it puts you in a place to let you know that you got to be willing to change. You cannot stay the same and accomplish a lot of different things. If you stay stuck, you're not going to accomplish the things that you know you're capable of doing. And a disruptive thinker is someone who is not afraid to step out by themselves. They can go solo. Because one thing I tell people, you can't tell everybody your business.
All right.
You can't tell everybody your dreams, because everybody's not going to clap for you. You're going to have those haters that's going to be behind the scenes. And when you go to them, and you ask them, do you think I can do this? Believe me, if they haven't got off that table, off that stool themselves, they're not going to support you. So Joyce Myers is one of my favorites, and also T.D. Jakes is one of my favorites.
All right. So down in Moore County, I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on in the educational system right now concerning vulgar books on the shelves in our Moore County schools.
Yeah.
I made a comment on social media. Look, if it's, why should there even be a discussion?
That's right.
I mean, if it's vulgar, take it off the
That's
shelves.
right.
If you decide to leave it on, you might as well put up a stripper pole in the library, okay? That's just how I feel about that. What are your thoughts on that, Reverend Davis?
Well, my thoughts is this. I said to somebody today, I said, I'm not alarmed, because if I want to teach my children Black history, I'm going to teach it to them. This is an opportunity for Black families to teach history to our children. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I don't see it as yes, it's a big thing in the sense of they're trying to hinder the history. But if we go along with it, we're just as guilty. Which means teach it at home. I said to my husband today, I said churches can have history study groups and bring the kids in and teach them history. Because the whole idea is you're trying to paint a picture of a country that does not exist yet. Slavery and all that stuff was real.
Right.
And so any way that people can discriminate against other people, they're going to do it. But see, I don't have the same mindset. My mindset is, well, let us teach it then. So when my son go to school and hears something, if I've taught him properly, he can say that's not real. That's not. Now he might get in trouble, but you understand what I'm saying? You can't just feed them anything because they will be educated. You have educated, prepared them yourself. So I look at it as an opportunity for us to teach. That's
Well,
how I
I'm
look at
saying,
it.
like, with vulgar books, let me say this. When I was in 4th and 5th grade, I remember Judy Blume, the author Judy Blume, had books out there that mentioned having a period and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And to me, that was like,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
It made me want to read more and more and more and see what else Judy Blume had to say, because she had some other stuff out there.
Yeah.
I don't remember it all now.
Yeah.
But I think little things like that
Yeah, you have
should
to
be...
I agree with you on that. I think that if there's a certain book that you're not comfortable with your child having, I think that's a conversation with them and explaining to them why. Because children are going to be curious. And if you don't explain to them why you don't want them reading the book, I can guarantee you they're going to read it.
Right.
Because if you take time to explain, this is what that's my responsibility to teach you about that. That's what I'm talking about with that. But when it comes to them pulling out the black books and all that kind of stuff, I'm not alarmed, because I think it's an opportunity for teaching to still go on.
Okay. As a woman of the cloth and always speaking truth, and we should be honest and truthful, how do you feel about fictitious books that are... I mean, I know we all like a good story now and then, but how do you feel about... I mean, and I'm all about, books that are like autobiographies and stuff like that. But as an
I think
author
you have
and a
to...
reverend, how do you feel?
Well, I think you have to be mindful of what they're saying. I mean, it's nothing. I think it's nothing wrong with reading it, but if you know it's not true, don't buy into it. Number one, if you're educated, you can educate yourself. Just like you said, once you found out about that author, what did you do? You wanted to see what else she was talking about. So if you have a book that you know is not real, then if somebody else is having a conversation with you about the book, let them know that stuff is not real. It's not. It's almost like the term they use now. What, fake news? But it's just in a book.
But it's
fake
becoming
news.
increasingly difficult
Yeah.
to figure out what's
What
real
is.
and what isn't.
Yes, that's true.
Once upon a time, you could rely on going to a library and you could go into the nonfiction area.
That's right.
And because of the effort you had to provide to get that information, you could rely on it.
Yeah.
Once that information became at your fingertips with an electronic, you're open up for a lot of people Pandora's box, because that pulls the shade off now.
Yeah.
So the only way to keep folks confused is to put out there a bunch of misinformation, so they have to try to sort through, and that brings about a certain measure of discernment and maturity that unfortunately we got far too many people that are looking for confirmation bias rather than facts and truth.
Yeah, I agree. And then if you're reading something in a field that you're not familiar with, find someone who's like, if I was reading something about law enforcement and I don't know a lot, I could actually come to you
Sure.
and say, because I trust you and I feel like you're going to be honest with me, I could ask you this question based on this book. Is this actually factual? And you could tell me that's not true. Just like you said about, you gave her some points about how long a person has been missing.
Right.
See, that's information that when you said that, my ears went open. I said, oh, because we've often been taught that.
But that's an example, actually, a very small snippet of this is part of the problem. It used to be art imitating life.
Right.
Now we got life imitating art.
All right, and look, we are at the top of the hour and the close of our show. Real quick, I just want to say thank you, first of all, Elijah McCormick, American Idol, for allowing us to play your song today, Soar. It's on all platforms. Reverend Davis, thank you for coming in again today. Will, thank you for sitting in the seat and co-hosting with me today. Real quick, Reverend Davis, how can one get in touch with you if they wanted to reach out to you, please?
They can reach me at angela.davis61@yahoo.com.
Any more books we're going to expect from you in the future?
Yes,
we can
ma'am.
expect?
I am currently working on my 4th book. I haven't got the title yet, but it's in the making.
Nice.
All right. It's been a pleasure, everybody. Again, hashtag find Allisha Watts.
Yes,
Okay?
yes.
All right. We love you, and we hope that you enjoyed the rest of the week.
Amen.